Hello, this is Matt, and I'm back to talk about silver acts in the United States. So I got a U.S. flag with a T-Rex because we're going to dig into it, guys. Silver has been treated and dealt with and subsidized throughout the United States history. And I have a younger version of me that's going to tell you all about 1792, 1837, even 1853. We all know 1873. Have I wore you out yet? It gets exciting, guys. Hang in there. Back to a younger version of me. The 1792 Coinage Act, which made every dollar be 371 and 4/16 grains of silver equal to $1. So 416 standard grains, because they were basing it on an 89.2% purity, which was based on the Spanish mill dollar. So either way though, 371.25 grains over 480 equals 0.773 ounces of silver. So that's an important number to remember. 1837 Coinage Act, they set the gold to silver ratio 16:1. They then made the silver dollar 412.5 grains, which is what we know of as today, 90% pure, 26.73 grams. Again, 90% pure, so they maintain that it's still $1 is equal to 0.773 ounces of silver. So we have the Seated Liberty dollar from 1840 to 1873. And here is a Seated Liberty dollar. The crime of 1873, with the Comstock lode, there was an overabundance of silver now, so the silver value was reduced. They demonetized it. They did set the gold to silver ratio 16:1. The crime of 73 essentially cut the value of silver in half. So if silver was at 16:1, 20 years later, by 1894, it was 32:1. So the value of the silver dropped beneath the value of the actual dollar. So basically silver was demonetized. Because we stopped using it, demand wasn't there, so people didn't worry about it, right? And the value just decreased. 1873 to 1885, they issued what they called a trade dollar, which was 420 grains. Here's the back of one. 420 grains, and here's the front. So these were a short time. They're basically used for international trade. They said most of them ended up in China because we were trading with them. But in the U.S., we did not have any silver dollars made at that time. So 1873 is when the Seated Liberty ended. Now the U.S. government did try to save silver. They tried to subsidize it. In 1878, Bland-Allison Act, they were buying $2 million a month worth of silver. And it wasn't until 1878, the Bland-Allison Act, is when we got the Morgan dollars that everybody knows. So everybody knows of the Morgan dollar as the silver dollar. Now this, again, 90% pure, still maintaining the same 0.773 ounces. So in 1890, same thing, but they upped it even more. They agreed to buy 4.5 million ounces of silver every month. But no matter what they did, no matter how much they bought, the market kept declining. The value kept declining. In that 20 years, from 74 to 94, the market value of silver, regardless of the 78 and the 90, we tried to prop it up, but it didn't work. The value kept declining. We were essentially diluting the currency. We kept boosting it up, providing stimulus, but nothing could keep it up. So by 1893, we had a panic. There were bank runs. We were diluting our money, so gold was fleeing the country. Because think about it. If you can get silver for 32:1, you can go exchange it to gold because it's legal tender, right? It is a ratio. You can trade it for gold. So everybody was converting to gold. Gold was fleeing the country. We were losing our high standard, right? So silver, in a way, was diluting, just like today the paper dollars are diluting. So Grover Cleveland in 1893 repealed that Sherman Act of 1890. So we were going to buy 4.5 million ounces a month. He had to repeal it. There was too much silver. In 1896, there was a politician named William Jennings Bryan that ran on the ticket of 16:1. And even though the market price of silver was 32:1, they wanted 16-1 because silver was the money of the farmer and the industrial worker. It was the money of the little guy, right? Trying to battle the gold, business, industrial giants, right? So William Jennings Bryan in 1896 ran for president. And it relates to the Wizard of Oz. That's the story. You have Dorothy with her silver shoes that make it easy to walk on the gold path. She picked up the Scarecrow, which was the farmer, the Tin Man, which was the industrial worker. They had the Lion, who was William Jennings Bryan. That was supposed to be the courageous leader that was going to go to Oz and talk to the president, or at least the elected officials in the great land of Oz, and try to convince them that a bimetallic system is better. Silver and gold. Bimetallic, it would work, guys. It could work. But it didn't work. He lost the election in 1896, so in 1900, the U.S. went on a gold standard, just like the rest of the world, except for China and Mexico, who are on a silver standard. Now, for us today, the most important silver or silver dollar to us is the Morgan and the peace dollar. Those are the beautiful coinage that started in 1878 and went all the way to 1935. Think about that lifespan, all that those silver dollars withstood and stood for. Now, the crime of 1873 eliminated the silver dollar, and it wasn't until 1878, the Bland-Allison Act, which restored the coinage. And the Morgan dollar in 1878 was created, but it had some issues. They couldn't decide whether it was 8 feathers or 7 feathers. But the Morgan, as much as we think it's been cherished, actually was not in demand. And by 1904, it kind of was playing second to gold. Plus, there was a shortage of silver. So after 1904, we stopped making the silver dollars again. And it wasn't until the 1918 Pittman Act, which authorized more silver. So we actually melted over 270 million Morgan dollars to create future silver dollars. So if you think about that, all those Morgans were melted down, and in 1921, silver dollars came back. But this was another transition. They dusted off the Morgan dies. We made a 1921 Morgan, which is the most common Morgan. But we also had this new design, the new peace dollar. But there were issues there too. The 1921 peace dollar had a high relief, which meant that when you stacked it, it wasn't stacking. So they had to redesign that, and in 1922 came out with a more commercial design, something that could be stacked and used. And that 1922, 1923 are extremely common peace dollars. We probably all have those. If you think about it, 1928 is the rarity. That's the rare peace dollar that you're looking for. 1929 to 1933, no peace dollars due to the Depression. They had one more spurt of energy in 1934, 1935, but then it stopped. 1934, this is extremely interesting. There was a man named Pittman who was the author of the Pittman Act from 1918. Now in 1934, so he was a Nevada politician. So I'm sure he had some financial interest in boosting and subsidizing the silver industry. He said, 1934, let's start buying silver. And they were buying hordes of it. They were basically trying to manipulate the price. The market value was 35 cents per ounce. So silver was 35 cents per ounce market value. They wanted to get it up to $1.29. So they were paying too much, buying everything they could, inflating and trying to manipulate the price of silver to help subsidize all the silver miners. Now at this time, the whole world was on the gold standard, but China and Mexico were on a silver standard. So what did this do for them? All of a sudden, their money started becoming more valuable. So they were on a silver standard, silver prices were going up, it was causing their whole economy to be turned upside down. So think about that. Now the money, intrinsic value of somebody in China is worth much more than the value of the money. So now you have hyperinflation. Hyperinflation destroyed the Chinese economy, So now we're talking mid-30s. That leads to Mao. So they had inflation, economy crumble, and led to Mao. What else happened in 1933? Do you remember FDR's Executive Order 6102, the gold confiscation, where he said it's illegal to own gold. Send it to us and we'll pay you $20.67 per ounce. So what are you going to do? It's either illegal, which means you're either going to have to pay up to $10,000 fine or go to jail for 10 years if you keep your hoard of gold. And it's patriotic to turn it into the government. This is going to help us get out of the Depression. What are you going to do? Most people turn their gold in for $20.67 per ounce. Then the government revalued gold to $35 an ounce. That's 69% gain that the government assumed, right? They bought it for 20, they sell it, or at least now its value is 35. So they won on that bet, right? But what are you going to do? You're a patriotic person, you're a law-abiding person, you're going to follow the rules. Those people that held their gold and said, I don't mind the risk of being a criminal. I'm going to hold gold because I think it's valuable. Now, they had to hold it hidden for 40 years because it didn't become legal again till the 1970s. So they had to hold it for almost 40 years before they could show it and sell it and trade it. In 1853, there was an interesting change. The 1849 gold rush, because since it was a bimetallic ratio, when the gold became more available, it threw the ratio off. So what they did was they ended up making the dimes, quarters, and half dollars smaller, because again, the ratio was off. They didn't touch the Morgans, or not the Morgans, they didn't touch the seated Liberty dollars, but they did mess with the change. So $1 in change was 0.7232. So again, kind of devalued the change. Now this is the history of silver. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. This is a flag, that's a T-Rex, because we are going to rip apart silver's history and how it's framed in 1890. They also agreed to buy,